Hello and welcome back to the All Out Brits Podcast, the podcast where we send the house on all things NFL. And you might notice that I am by myself this week. Hopefully not for too long. You don't want to hear me drowning on about how the Niners absolutely shat the bed heading into the second half of the Super Bowl. And obviously, that is the game that we're going to talk about. Super Bowl 58 from Las Vegas, Nevada, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers. And it was a game where ultimately Mahomes got his third Super Bowl, which incidentally was one more Super Bowl than George Kittle had receptions that game. I don't know if you can hear me, Taryn, or if you're still missing. I think he's probably... I've not seen him actually since the halftime show of the Super Bowl. I think not many people have. Not many 49ers showed up in the second half, actually, to be fair. But Taryn, are you Taryn? Taryn? I think he's gone missing, boys and girls. Oh, there he is. Here he is, looking sorry for himself, holding his little baby ball. Taryn Sidhu. This is actually the first time I've seen you since half time, really. So how are you feeling, mate? And I've noticed there's no Bang Bang 49ers gang hat on today. There's no 49ers merch anywhere in sight. Surprised you got McCaffrey on the shirt behind you, but let's go back. Let's start where it was all happy for you. How was your night, mate? How did it begin and ultimately how did it end?
I don't want to talk about it, but podcast. We got to start somewhere. I came in holding the ball because I wish the Niners had held on to the ball. It might have done much better for us if they did. If they let CMC, the man behind me, hold on to the ball, maybe things would have turned out better. Right.
You sound like you're struggling again, mate.
Where do we begin? Where do we begin, Mr. Greenwood?
Let's start at the start of the game. So let's focus on that first half. Talk me through how you were feeling at halftime ahead of that absolute car crash that was the Usher halftime performance. How are you feeling when you were leading Patrick Mahomes going into the second half?
I mean, we spoke about it a lot on the podcast. We mentioned it was going to be a very tough game. And I knew, and I said to you that it was going to be a really tough game. I think what surprised me the most was how good we started the game. I think holding the ball straight away, the drive Brock put together straight away. And I talked about it on the podcast, the play actions, the sort of putting the ball into the hands of the big playmakers. But also what I liked at the start of the game is they started using assets that we don't normally see. Chris Conley touched the ball, Juwan Jennings. And you could tell that they'd schemed it so the big players that the Chiefs defense had plans for weren't seeing the ball as much, and that was creating issues for the Chiefs because obviously they hadn't schemed for these players and their routes and things like that. And it worked so well until CMC decided to throw the ball away within about first 5 minutes of the game, and from then onwards, it set the tone for what was an absolutely crazy game. But I think for me to be going up that many points against the Chiefs, we said it again on the podcast, the team with the biggest know-how, the team with the most experience were going to be the one that won this game. And that, I think, is what won the Chiefs this game in the very end. But in that first half, I think the inexperience is what won the Niners that first half, in the sense that the Chiefs knew that, they could sort of stay around for a little bit. As long as they kept in touch and distance, they'd be all right. Whereas the Niners just sort of were a bit naive in the sense of, well, we're at this point, we're still leading. We don't need to, extend ourselves. And that's where it really, let the Niners down, not capitalizing on the big chances that they had. It's just too much. It's too much, Elliot. It really is.
I think it was, like you say, it was that naivety that really brought about what was truly really exciting Super Bowl. And let's sort that out. I wasn't like where I was looking, bro. My eyes
I'll get the control back now. I like this. Let me call the plays. I'll do a better job.
Go on then, bro. You can host from now on. But I think it was like you said, it was a really exciting game. And going into the half, I don't think anyone really expected that. Yeah. I know they were favoured in it by the bookies, but I think the consensus of people who understand the game a little bit, they knew that Patrick Mahomes is a dog, and they knew that when Mahomes has got the ball in the hands, we've doubted him too many times this season already. He does what he does. This is his worst season in the league, and he's got a ring. So what does that say about how low his ceiling is compared to everyone else's. It's completely different. That man is special. And on the flip side of that, the 49ers, they were good, but good doesn't win Super Bowls. Special does. And Patrick Mahomes is special.
I think the most upsetting thing when I've looked back at the game, it's the fact that I don't think the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I think the Niners really did lose it. And that is simple in my eyes, is you can't give up special teams plays. You can't miss field goals. You can't miss, penalties and flags. And you can't take penalties and flags on big drives. And you can't not know the rules of the bloody game either, because all those things add up together. And I genuinely do believe that, as you say there, yeah, Mahomes was special, but I don't think the Chiefs were. I honestly think the Niners shot themselves in the foot that game. They had it there, and I think they gave it all away. If you look at the game, the touchdown that they scored came from the Niners making a huge mistake on special teams in a region of sort of, their territory where the Chiefs hadn't been able to capitalize on anything there. And the Niners did stop them. And I honestly, looking back at it all, watching it all again, I don't think the Chiefs were extraordinary. I think they played very, very well. But I think they were given that win by the Niners. Their inexperience and the injuries that they had, but also everything that they did imperfectly, the Niners really cost them in the end.
So you're telling me that the Chiefs, who had more passing yards, more rushing yards, more first downs, more yards per plays, less fumbles, although the same turnovers, but and also a greater third down efficiency, they weren't the better team? Is that what
That's
you're
not
trying to say?
what I'm saying. I didn't say that. I said that they didn't win the Super Bowl. The 49ers
Well, they
lost
did.
it.
They did.
No. You're not getting what I'm saying, bro.
I am completely getting.
I don't think
why.
they did anything. I don't think they did anything extraordinary or extra special to win them that Super Bowl. I just think they played normally. I just think they were handed it by the Niners in the end.
I think you're gasping for air. You're gasping for
Not
excuses.
all, mate. I think
You
that's a valid take out of it.
You spoke about the penalties. Well, each side have 6 penalties, and the Chiefs ultimately, it only cost, it was 10 yards difference in favour.
There was no holding calls, which was quite funny against the most called team, the most penalised team for holding calls. And I've looked at a few clips, and I'm going to sound salty now, but there were some shocking missed decisions on 3rd and 10s. Some holding calls that really were missed against the Chiefs, and there was quite a few on the Niners side as well. So officiating wise, I think there was some big missed opportunities there. I get letting the teams play, but those change Super Bowls, and we're talking about small margins, and I'm looking back at it, I think those are the small margins that have really come up and caused issues this time around.
Bro, you're starting to sound like a Cowboys fan at the moment, the way that you're going. All these excuses coming out of nowhere. I actually thought the officials had quite a good game, and they let the players play football, which is what we all wanted. They didn't get in the way of the game, and I actually thought they had a really, really good game. And you are just waffling. How is that Chiefs team not special? Patrick Mahomes was elite, and he was throwing to receivers who you hadn't heard of before the start of the season. They've had the worst year out of every receiving corps, pretty much, that have gone to the playoffs and gone to the postseason. And yet Patrick Mahomes has still managed to be incredibly special. That defense was absolutely superb. You were 3-12 on third down. 3-12 on third down, because that defense stood up and they absolutely delivered. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, by that first half, really, I thought Patrick Mahomes was fantastic in the second half. Obviously, throwing for like 340 yards. Forget the turnover. It was those two touchdowns, which were absolutely sensational. He just had a brilliant game. Now, Brock Purdy, on the other hand, he was just Brock.
Here we go. So this is the same thing. What makes me laugh here is you're saying the Chiefs weren't special, or you're saying they were special, sorry. But then you've only mentioned one man there and said Patrick Mahomes was special. So it just sums up everything about this. Is that the only man that was special, I think, was Patrick Mahomes in that. No one else was extraordinary. And I think Brock had a decent enough game. But again, it comes down to the Niners and their own faults in this, is when they had their foot on the throat of the Chiefs. When I look at the interception, when I look at sort of the turnovers that they had as well, they had the opportunities when they held the Chiefs to go and do something, but the play calling was not there. When they had 3 drives, there was not one run in it. And that's all that it comes down to in those key
Bro.
moments.
I've heard it all on social media all week about how the Niners didn't do enough to establish the run. Well, that's completely false. On those early downs, they tried to rush the ball 29 times compared to 31 passing the ball. Now, the run just wasn't working. The Chiefs were run blitzing where they run through the gaps because they know what's going to happen. Because you know that if you shut down CMC, you shut down that entire offense. That hasn't been something that people have been hiding from. That hasn't been something that's new to the 49ers. It just shows to me that I don't think people understand what they were watching. In terms of sort of completing drives and getting a first down, and then kind of it's what you call successful drives. In terms of successful drives, they were 56% when they started with a rush, but then they were 80% when they started with a pass. So to me, that says Kyle Shanahan swapped the game plan because it wasn't working. He made those adjustments to something that was working and put the hands in, as you say, Taron, a decent enough quarterback. But decent enough doesn't win Super Bowls. Now, CMC, I thought, had a very, very, very good game. Extremely very good game. 160 total yards. But he couldn't do it all. Now, he had an absolute legacy game, I thought. He had a legacy drive, which got ultimately just 3 points. And I think if the Niners had known the rules, it would have been a very, very different game. Now, heading into overtime, Taz, obviously, it should have never got there. Have you got any kind of nice words to say about your kicker, your rookie kicker, who's been fantastic for your season? But ultimately, when you're losing pretty much 1 point in the game, 1 point, and you're costing your team to go to overtime. How do you feel about that? Because that ultimately, that's cost you the Super Bowl.
Well, let's just go back a second because I'm not taking the Brock Purdy slander. First of all, Brock Purdy. Let's get this right now, Mr. Elliott.
In your words, was decent enough. Indecent enough in your words.
Yeah, but this is what we need to get at here. Brock Purdy, I thought, had a good game. I thought he had a good game. What makes me laugh is that you said that they stopped the run, but then you said that CMC had a legacy game. So I can't win it. I can't win.
Yeah,
he's changed teams, but he's had a legacy game. I don't understand that.
Because he had 80 yards in the air. That's why he had a legacy game. He was absolutely superb.
So and then this is the whole thing. Well, then where's that yards come from? Someone's got to throw him the ball if it was in the air.
Yeah, and he was the only one. Your running back was your leading receiver. Brock Purdy couldn't get the ball to Debo. He couldn't get the ball to Kittle, and he couldn't get the ball to Brandon Ayuk. And he relied on those extra people. And those extra people, those little third stringers, they're not the ones who are going to make those big plays. They're not the ones who are going to change the game. That you need to get your hands into your playmakers, and that's what Mahomes did. 93 receiving yards for Kelsey. CMC got 80, but no one else was anywhere near that.
I mean, Juwan Jennings, the third stringer, had a game of his absolute life. If 49ers win that, Juwan Jennings goes on to be Super Bowl MVP. He's someone who they've put the ball in his hands every single third down when it comes and matters to it. And I think that when we look at this, we look at the elite assets. CMC had a great game. Juwan Jennings, he's not elite, but he was an asset in that game, had a great game. Ayuk didn't. He had a quiet game. But then you had Debo and Kittle, both went off with injuries. We had O-lineman that went off with injuries. And we had Dre Greenlaw, who was absolutely immense in the first half, go off with injuries. And his replacement gave up 9 targets and 9 receptions after that. So if we look at that, what it says to me is that the people who were the assets, they weren't the ones that were getting it done. And that's not because they weren't getting the ball, but because of the fact that they weren't available or they were injured in that sense. And it came onto the hands of others who stepped up to a sense, but also you can't win and you can't put everything on Brock Purdy if you haven't got your main personnel there in the middle of a Super Bowl. There's the Chiefs, again, got away with it in my eyes because I think they were under the cosh. And if there wasn't, again, the Niners' own mistakes, we'll go and talk about the blocked field goal and an extra point attempt now. But again, another Niner mistake. Special teams letting the Niners down on 2 occasions in this game. I'm not going to throw it all on Jake Moody. I don't rate him. I think what makes it worse is when you have the biggest clutch kicker that we've known in Robbie Gould, and you had the opportunity to pay him and you decided not to. And then multiple times this season we've put it really close or lost games because of the kicking situation. It makes it very difficult to root for the kid. But at the same time, he then goes and sets records in the Super Bowl for the longest field goal made and things like that. So it's very difficult. But at the same time, this team's about confidence. Everyone wants confidence in their players, confidence in their fan base. And I think Jake Moody's just, at the moment, he's not filling me with confidence. And that also goes throughout the whole team. If you look at the fact that even in that last overtime drive, they took that opportunity. I think Shanahan, if he'd known the rules, and that is terrible, by the way, terrible that they didn't know the rules.
Well,
but if he knew the rules, there's no way he would have trusted Jake Moody with that kick then. He would have gone and pushed that on that fourth, pushed it on the third a bit differently.
Well, have you seen though that what's come out afterwards? Obviously, Kyle Juszczyk said that he didn't really know the rules.
Yeah, so did Eric Armstead as well.
But I think someone, I forget who it was from, but it might have been Shanahan himself. But it was the plan or the reason why they chose to take the ball first was because if it then went to sudden death over time, they'd get the ball and they get the first opportunity sudden death. Yeah. Now that wouldn't have mattered anyway, because then it's come out from Andy Reid and the Chiefs that they'd already planned that if they scored and they were second, so if the Niners scored first and got 7 points, and then the Chiefs went down the field and scored, they were going to go for 2, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway, which I think most teams would in that situation, to be fair. We've got momentum and things. But the fact that you've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game and you haven't communicated those plans to your players, it kind of just shows his shortfalls.
Again, and that's the whole point of making. The Niners lost themselves this Super Bowl. Their own shortcomings lost them this Super Bowl.
But I think when you look at Kyle, when you look at your coach and you look at the entire team and you look at the organisation as a whole, really, they haven't won a Super Bowl since they've actually left San Francisco pretty much. I think that when everyone's been saying, oh, they've got 5 Super Bowls under Joe Montana and Steve Young. Well, the old team did. This team have got absolutely nothing. They've got a couple of NFC championships. And this is the thing, Shanahan's been fantastic in getting them to the point. He's been fantastic in getting them to the line, but he's not been able to drag them across it. Now, obviously, his 4 seasons as a head coach, or his last 4 seasons as a head coach in San Francisco, he's gone Super Bowl, lost, NFC Championship, lost, NFC Championship, lost, and now Super Bowl, lost. What's he going to do next year? He has to take that step. Now, what does he have to do to take the step? What does the GM have to give him in order to take the step? Because he's got all those pieces, hasn't he? He's got probably the most, on paper, the most elite team, and yet he just couldn't get it done. So where do you think you make those addresses? Is it on special teams? Because obviously he said about a missed kick. He didn't miss the kick. He got blocked. So whose fault's that? It's not. Sometimes it's just a good play, or other times it's someone who's blocking the kick. It doesn't have to be your rookie kicker who's obviously low on confidence. The cameras are all on him. The talk's all about him. Yeah. But at the same time, Brock Purdy missed a wide open Brandon Ayuk on 3rd and short in overtime that would have, again, I would have loved to seen it actually, because with all the Niners not knowing the rules, they're going to the field running around like they were in the Super Bowl. That would have been absolutely hilarious. But again, that puts them in a completely different situation. Yeah. So how do you feel about all that, Taryn? And where do you go now?
I just think I've seen quite a bit today. I think everyone can tell I'm a bit heated. I'm not. I've had enough, Elliot. I really have had enough. I've seen a lot today about the team. I don't know if you've seen it. You might not have, but Brandon Ayuk's come out and said, "Don't forget who got you there," on his socials. His wife has just said, "This might be our last visit to Levi Stadium. We might not be here next season." The O-line is now beefing each other on Twitter, saying the Chris Jones rush in the final drive on I think it was 3rd down, which Brock Purdy and the play action gets absolutely blown up. They're all blaming each other, saying it was your fault, no, it was your fault, this and that. That tells me that there is something not right in the dressing room, even though we've seen how much of a close unit this team are. But it shows there are some issues with cohesion in this team. And I think for me, if we look at that Super Bowl, what won Mahomes that Super Bowl, I'd argue mostly was his O-line, I'd argue. I think if you look at the fact that he had the one of the most stacked defensive fronts coming at him, yes, he got sacked quite a few times.
He got sacked more than Purdy.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That his whole line still held up better for him. How much time did Mahomes have in the pocket? The time he got sacked is because he was trying to extend the play too far instead of hitting his receivers when they had the chance to do it. Whereas Purdy was getting blown up, plays were getting blown up because the O-line could not buy him a second. That Ayuk pass that you're talking about, I 100%, I've watched it a million times. He has to throw it. He has to just stick it straight in his chest, and the Niners go into a much better position there. But every single time, I don't know if this is a Steve Wilkes problem, I don't know if it's a personnel problem, but 3 rushers were running riot on the Niners in that game. And again, you can only look at one area, and that's the O-line. It's something that he hasn't invested in when it comes to the draft. They've only really invested in the defensive front, kind of invested in the offense, but nothing's really been done to that O-line. They've kept the sort of veterans that they've got there and tried to add a few pieces, but it's not what it needs to be. I saw, Shannon Sharp and everyone like that talking about Brock Purdy and saying, well, if you put Joe Burrow in that team, Josh Allen in that team, do they win a Super Bowl? Did they do this? Did they do that? And the whole argument, yeah, it's valid, but at the same time is behind that O-line, there's not much that I think they can do because of how mobile they are as quarterbacks, and they don't get time to do anything like that behind that O-line. Purdy doesn't get anything to do that with our O-line. The amount of scrambles he has to make, the amount of sort of recoveries he has to make, that it's crazy to think that there's not investment in that. And I think going forward, especially in this off season, we want Brandon Ayuk paid, and I want this O-line sorted out, mate. You're looking at me with absolute disgust. Go on. What were you going to say?
You've had one of the best O-lines all year long.
Don't be giving this rubbish.
You have had one of the best O-lines. You've got the best left tackle in the league in Trent Williams, who had a stinker of a game. They just can't handle it under the bright lights. 2 holds in back-to-back plays. He just couldn't handle it, could he? Bless him. But that O-line,
the Chiefs, they got called on it. The Chiefs had about 18 on both and never got called.
This is one thing I was going to say. You mentioned that the reason why you thought that the main difference was the O-lines, and that kind of the Chiefs O-line held on to the pressure a little bit more. Well, they did certainly hold, didn't they, mate? Because that's one thing that I will agree with you on, is there was a lot of holds there. But I've been watching Micah Parsons all year long, bro, and he's been getting held up left, right, and centre. And you've not really heard me complaining about it. I've just been getting on with it week after week, accepting that this is what's going to happen when you got the best.
Because you know that you're going to go nowhere. That's why we had aspirations of a Super Bowl. You guys know that you're not going to make it to the NFC games. That's different.
And yet we took home the same amount of trophies as you did, bro. No Lombardis were coming back to either San Francisco or Dallas.
Oh, well. At least we're both unsuccessful then together, aren't we?
Exactly. Do you know what? It would have been worse if you were there chirping it away at me after winning a Super Bowl. But I think if we were to summarise that game, Taryn, what do you think the 49ers should have done differently, and what do they need to do differently going forward? And let's talk a bit more positively about Patrick Mahomes.
Of course.
Because how did you feel that game went for him and the Chiefs side of things compared to kind of obviously all the talk that we've had about the 49ers?
I think Niners-wise, there's not much we can sort of say more than what we've already said. I think the emotions are still high. And I think, like you said, it's a team that haven't delivered, even though they've had the opportunity to. We've mentioned the Super Bowl window closing. Well, it's getting close. It's getting very, very close. And you've got the assets there. It's the issues are making the right decisions, making the key decisions in those moments. And I think that's really what let down the Niners in that game, is when you've got the Chiefs in a certain situation, you can't let up. Obviously unfortunate with injuries, but at the same time, it goes in depth. You need players that can step up in those situations. You can't have people that, aren't going to sort of step up in that big occasion. And like you said there, it's the big occasion. You can't get to the bowl and not be prepared. Because I saw Chris Jones talking about the fact that they knew exactly what they were going to do in overtime. That's a difference in attitude at the end of it. That's an attitude of winners. That's an attitude of a team that knows everything. Doesn't matter what gets thrown at them, they have an answer for it. And that was a difference with the Niners. It was almost like, I don't know, a big brother and a little brother facing off. And yeah, the little brother might get, a good chance at it. But at the end, because the little brother's been there longer, got more experience, he's going to come out on top. And that's simple as. That's what it felt like. And I think that's really how it materialized in the end. As for the Chiefs, at the end of the game, we haven't even mentioned the fact that we watched this all together in a wonderful communal area in this, tough environment to watch it. I think when everyone else wanted the Chiefs to win, and you're the only San Fran fan. But at the end of the game, you saw my reaction. I wasn't annoyed. I wasn't anything because it's Mahomes' magic. That's the only thing we can say. On the line, the 4th and 1, or whatever it was, big call. He makes the play. There's so many instances in this game where he makes a play. And what can you do? Like, I can remember watching, the Brady Mahomes Bowl, and the shoe was on the other foot because it didn't matter what situation it is, Brady made the play. And even though Mahomes was trying everything, Brady made the play. And it felt like the exact same situation that you can't hate it because it is just a thing of beauty. And I think that is the only thing I can say is that if you're going to lose to anyone, you want to go out in that fashion. You don't want it to be ruined by, stupid, crazy decisions in that sense. You want to go out on your sword. And I think in that sense, the Niners did. And I think, wow, what more can we say about Patrick Mahomes? And he is the face of the NFL. Going forward, this Chiefs team could be absolutely crazy, immense. Obviously, there's been a bit more talk about Travis Kelce's future. We said it on the podcast, and he's not confirming whether he's back next season, so that could add to it. But what about yourself, Mr. Greenwood? What did you make of the Chiefs in that situation in the game?
Well, Kelsey's actually come out and said that he wants that three-peat. He wants the three-peat, so he's definitely coming back for one more.
I was hoping my prediction was going to be right for once.
He wants the three-peat. He wants 3 in a row. But Patrick Mahomes, big brother, as you like to refer to him, Taz. Big bro, always getting it done, isn't he, against little bro? And Patrick Mahomes is no exception to that. He was absolutely fantastic in that second half. Yeah. And really, all season long, he's been playing around with some receivers that no one's heard of. It's been a bit of a tin pot receiving core, really, since Tyreek's left, other than Kelce. He's been messing around a lot, but he still gets it done, which is so scary.
Yeah.
So scary for the rest of the league. I think it's the biggest cap hit win from a quarterback in Super Bowl history. So he's taking money away from the other places on his offense, but it doesn't matter because whoever he's throwing to, he ends up kind of winning the Super Bowl. Kadarius Toney is now a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's got more Super Bowls than Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. It's incredible what he's managed to do. Eli Manning, it's absolutely sensational what Mahomes has managed to do with this receiving core. He's got 15 postseason wins. There's only 2 people have more. That's Joe Montana, who's only got 1 win more than him, and then Brady, who's well clear with 35. He's 28 years old. He's had 6 seasons as a starter, and he's already got the 3rd most playoff wins of all time and the 3rd most Super Bowl rings of all time. He's got the most QB rushing yards in Super Bowl history. And again, this game, on the legs, when the game was on the line, he was absolutely sensational scrambling. Over the course of his career, he started 96 games, and the Chiefs have only lost 3 of them by more than 1 score. Again, sensational. 50% of the years that he's played in the league, he's got to a Super Bowl. He's 6-6 in conference championship appearances, and he's 5-1 when trailing by 10 points or more in the postseason. The rest of the NFL is 6-48. He's absolutely magic. Mahomes is the man. Mahomes is an absolute dog, and I think it's safe to say, Taron, that we're going to be having this conversation for years and years to come. I give it one more ring before Brady comes out of retirement and just and goes to your Niners and just tries to get another ring just to put a little bit more security between him and Mahomes.
I'm praying and begging.
Mahomes is coming for Brady's title, and I think if he carries on the trajectory that he's going, he's got 15 more years in him. Brady played until he's 40. He's gonna win more Super Bowls in that time. I think it's not a question of will he catch Brady, but when.
Yeah. 100%. I can agree with that. And I think, it was one of those Super Bowls where with first half, we were laughing and joking at how bad it was, but second half really did deliver. And that's what you want when you have to stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning here in the UK to sit through it all. I think everything about the game was amazing. Apart from the halftime show, I think we talked about how bad that was. Usher, I'm sorry, pal, but put your shirt back on. Yeah, watch this. No, I didn't want to watch it. I want it to go away because you ruined it for me, pal. But you know what? The features were actually pretty good. Just anything that wasn't Usher, was pretty good. But I think that added to it all. And I think what was quite nice in a sense was, yes, we kept seeing Taylor Swift and this and that, but we knew that the script writers wanted this win. But what I'm glad about is that it didn't take away from the actual game. Mahomes won that fair and square in a sense, and he delivered. And it's only right that that's how it goes. I'm happier that it went that way than it was Taylor Swift Bowl. So Brock Purdy, everyone supported him. Everyone wanted him to defeat Mahomes and Swift, and we'd been talking about it all week. He didn't get it done. So we'll have to wait until next season now to see who can stop this Chiefs team and stop Taylor Swift as well if they're still together.
I think, like you said, there's a few things that were wrong with the Super Bowl. Usher's halftime show being one of them. Yeah. But you just imagine waking up, or imagine watching that halftime show performance. If you're, who was it? Who was the woman who was singing? What was she called? Is it Alicia Keys?
Yeah, Alicia Keys, yeah.
Imagine being her husband and watching Usher just touch your missus up and down, then fucking go like on her ass. It was just absolutely disgusting. Like, she's got a family. She's someone's wife, and he's doing that to her on live TV in front of over 100 million people. I thought he's got balls, to be fair to him, but God, that was an absolute car crash of a halftime show. Or a roller skate crash, should we say, Taryn?
We should, yeah.
I don't know what he was doing on those roller skates, but not for me.
Yeah. Apparently, Justin Timberlake's got a lot of competition now with Usher, because bloody hell.
Apparently, it was 1,000 to 1 for Usher to come out on roller skates or something like that, and someone
put some money on it.
Yeah, I saw like there was do you know like those people that come around and like the fake crowd that hype it all up.
Yeah.
Someone said that they were in that sort of section, and someone screamed, like a bloke screamed when Usher took off his top because he put 10 grand on that Usher would take off his top. So I think that was probably the highlight of that bloke Super Bowl. But another thing which I wasn't too fond on was the commentary, Taryn. Should we talk a little bit about that? Because we were watching it on. Obviously, we're British. We are young professionals. We can't afford to pay for the subscriptions of your Sky Sports, of your DAZN. Yeah. So we have to watch it on your terrestrial TV, on ITV. And what did you think of the coverage, bro? Because for me, it got better when J Bell got in the booth, but before that, I thought it was slow, it was lousy, and we were making better calls than they were. To be honest with you, bro, we were saying the plays before the commentators even thought about saying it.
I think this is where we're falling down a little bit. And I think this is where the NFL needs to expand a little bit more. And I think it will. Obviously, we saw, the Super Bowl in its greatest capacity. We watch it normally on Sky every other week. Obviously, a lot of the time it's red zone, so we see Scott Hansen's face most of the time, so it's all right. But the Sky sort of broadcast really does seem a lot more informative and sort of updated. But this Super Bowl just seemed a lot more like it was catering to people who were sort of neutrals, or just people who had flicked over and seen that it was on. It didn't seem like it had the punch and the edge that you'd expect if you were sort of a fan like we are, who kind of understand what's going on. But at least we weren't listening to Tony Romo, because by the sounds of it, the Americans weren't too happy with him and his commentary. But I think this just shows that there's this gap in knowledge now in England and Europe, where you've got some people who really know and love the game and some who are still trying to get into it. And I think that's a balance, really. And I think in the next few years, it hopefully will become a bit more balanced. But this time round, it was absolutely shocking.
You're going Welsh again, aren't you? Absolutely shocking. That was Scottish.
Shocking.
but it's a gap, Taryn, that hopefully in the off-season, yourself and I, we can bridge and inform the people. So stay tuned, keep updated. But the best commentary of the entire thing was the Nickelodeon one, where they had SpongeBob, they had Patrick, and they had Dora the Explorer explaining what a holding call was, which was absolutely brilliant. I don't know if you've seen it, Taryn. So explaining what all the rules are. And I think, do you know what? She's the most knowledgeable commentator of the entire broadcasting suite. Whoever had the voice for Dora the Explorer, well done, love, because you did sensational. You were our MVP. You were the what is it? The Nickelodeon MVP, the MVP, isn't it? That's what they say. But I think all in all, fantastic Super Bowl, two fantastic teams, and ultimately the dog in Mahomes got it done.
Maybe that's what we need, is our ITV or BBC coverages to get the CBeebies lot on, get the Tweenies covering it, get the Teletubbies doing it. Maybe if we had the Teletubbies and the Tweenies covering the NFL, that'd be custard, first down, game over. We'd be watching it, loving it. It'd be great.
Get Mr. Tumble there going. It's time for
That
first
is
down.
amazing. Mr. Blobby as well. What's
Yeah.
Mr. Blobby doing these days?
I reckon he's an unsigned free agent that we can
I was
kind
going
of
to say,
pull
he
out
looks
the
like a
fan.
right lineman, though, doesn't he? Where's Sutty? Where are all these fellas? Like, get them going.
Mate, my childhood was Noddy.
Get
Rory the
Noddy.
racing car.
Yeah,
Get
Roy the
Noddy.
racing car. PC Plod. Get all
Big
them lot in.
Ears. Postman Pat. He could do a job, couldn't he, in the booth? Get him in there. That's the next one, Taz. That's the next
100%.
one.
Right, we've got a marketing plan sorted, everybody. Get it done. Get it sorted for the next Super Bowl.
Absolutely, mate. I'm excited. And also, it gets a younger crowd into it. When the young mums are waking up at 3 a.m. to kind of feed the child, they can have bloody CBB Super Bowl on. That is a business idea, so we've got it locked in.
It is. Shall we sum up then? What a wonderful Super Bowl. Unfortunately, it brings to end a wonderful season. A wonderful time for us. Obviously, only picked up the podcast very late on. But I think we've had a nice bit of fun with it all. It's been a really good season to enjoy and sort of take the mick out of as well. And I think it's a season where we knew it was going to end up in a love story. And we knew that we'd see that love story all over social media. And we did at the after party. And I think that leads quite nicely into our final sideline question of the 2023-2024 season, which is, we saw the after party for the Chiefs, wasn't too happy about it, and Travis Kelce giving everybody the ick. But it was DJ'd by Marshmello, which I thought brought the vibes. Jason Kelce was an ultimate hype man in the corner of that. Unreal. But the sideline question for this week is if you were having a Super Bowl winners party or a Super Bowl losers party, who would you pick to DJ or who to be performing on the night? Who are you going to go for, Mr. Greenwood?
I think it's different. You gotta have like a DJ feel. If I could pick any DJ from all time, I'm resurrecting Avicii for one night and one night only, because I think having him in the booth would be absolutely electric. I also think I went to see Bicep a couple of years ago, and they were unbelievable. I think a little Bicep thing could be good. They're in the booth. On the other hand, if we lost, it's the fact that you got to Super Bowl, it's still be an unbelievable season, but they don't give out awards for second place, do they? You don't get a medal for second place. So I don't know who I'd really want on it. I want someone who's going to make me feel sad and make me feel nice and warm inside, though, at the same time. I think I'd have to get Noah Khan. Him and singing Stick Season to me would just get me in the feels. And I'm sure you've been having that song on repeat lots and lots, bro. What music's been getting you in the feels this week? Have you had Marvin's Room, or should we call it?
I actually have, and I think that is definitely my lose. The problem is, I feel like it hit too deep, though. That was the issue. I think that's the slight issue with Marvin's Room this week. Yeah, I think if I lost Drake, you know what? Screw Drake. Just get the DJ to put it on. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I need Marvin's Room at the moment.
You could do better.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Bro.
That's what I was saying to the Niners. You could have done better. Just embarrassing. But I think we won. Just Carl Cox, mate. Can you imagine Carl Cox on the decks? Do you know who Carl Cox is?
No, I'm not in along.
No, fair enough. He's just this absolute big chungus Donny who wears glasses and just drops the filthiest sets whatsoever. He is an absolute G. Get him on the decks. Just need someone with a bit of groove on him. You know what I mean? I feel that when you've won something, you want a bit craziness in there. But yeah, if we lost, I'd just tell him to put Marvin's Room on repeat, or even a bit of Tory Lanez or something. Just get me cancelled at the same time as making me feel absolutely rough at the same time. But I've had enough, to be honest with you, Elliot. This podcast was a stretch and a half. I haven't got over it. I'm mourning still. Got enough grief today with everyone who'd seen me over the weekends. No, well, I'm done now. I need a break.
Well, break is what we'll have, sir. But after the break, you'll come back. You'll absolutely be over it, and you will do better. You will. I'm sure you will. Would you want Drake as your dream halftime show? Kind of like, obviously Usher was this year. Now we're going to save that conversation for another time, because that's another time.
Save that for next Super Bowl. Shall we sum up then, Mr. Greenwood? Then. Thank you very much for everything that you've done with this podcast. I hope everyone appreciates Mr. Greenwood as much as I do. The knowledge man, the statistician, the geek on the podcast is what we need when you got a lunatic on the left.
Oh, the greasy virgin is your friends like to call me at work time. I felt it was disrespectful, but I don't think I'm like that, am I? I think I'm just a stat man. Stat man green over here. That's what we'll call it.
Yeah, I'll leave that for the public to decide. We'll leave that as a public vote. We'll leave that as the Spotify question for the week as well. But I know for a fact we'll be back next year with a bang, with a vengeance. And we're manifesting a Niners Super Bowl win in my lifetime, because I need to feel that one time. I'm sure you feel the same about the Cowboys, but you couldn't manifest anything. So we'll leave that as it is.
We've got our time. We actually won a Super Bowl more recently than you have. So
Here we go.
Someone's got to win another one. Next season, it's a new start. New rookies coming into the league. It's all going to be exciting. And I can see us having a very, very different Super Bowl, to be honest with you. But we'll talk about that in due course as well. But yeah, once again, it's been a fantastic season. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in over across our various social media platforms. You genuinely thank you. The amount of joy that me and Taryn get when we have these arguments in the comments with different people, when we see those likes coming in, when we see the views coming in, it really just does make our day, doesn't it, Taryn? So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you very, very much for kind of listening and watching the games with us throughout the season. What has been a short season from the All Out Brits podcast point of view, but one that's been ultimately fantastic in many, many ways.
It has. But as always, Elliot, we send the Brits, we send the Blitz, we send it all because we want to bring them back for more. And that is what we're going to do. As we've said, keep tuned to our socials. There's going to be plenty of things out, and we might be needing your guys' help over the next few weeks and months with content, with ideas, with what you want to see. And as always, we thank you, and we shall see you next time, hopefully not too long away, on the All Out Brits podcast.
See ya!